You're listening to the 4-Phase Cycle Podcast with your hosts, Dr. Alex and Megan of ZESTY Ginger. If you're looking to naturally balance hormones and learn how to work with your body instead of against it, you've definitely come to the right place. As a duo of an integrative MD and a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and best friends, we use the 4 phases of the female cycle in combination with functional lab work and mindset practices to transform the lives of the women we work with.
We also have a whole lot of fun along the way. If you're new around here, it's best to start with season 1 before jumping around and plan to roll up your sleeves. Showing up for ourselves and enjoying our lives is what good health is all about. Just a quick reminder though, this information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making changes.
Hello, my loves. It's Alex here. We're back for day 8 of our cycle. Ooh, I hope that you are all enjoying these as much as I'm enjoying making them, because I'm just loving just the fact that I'm flowing with this whole thing and I'm living out exactly what we're talking about here. And I really appreciate the tags and stuff. That is so cool to see. Thank you so much. Thank you also for everyone who has reached out and let me know that they're sharing the series with the other women in their lives. It means so much to me, because really it is our belief and our goal, like I've said before, that, aligned women stepping into their power are just so important for our society and where we're headed and the future of everything, right? I mean, that's not to take away from the masculine at all. That is not, but just our society has had a lot of that supported already, right? Built in. And to balance that out and bring more of the balance between the two is really what our belief is, right? And so you may not think of it in the same way, but that is why it's so meaningful when you share. It's really comes down to, how do we get as many women feeling amazing as possible? Because when we feel good, the things that we are then able to do and the impact that we're able to make, that's the magic, right? The feeling goodness is just the baseline for the ability to really get after it. So the more people are in that space, the more the world transforms. At least that's how we think about it. And so I don't have the words to describe how grateful I am. That sounds kind of trite to say, I'm really grateful that you share, but it's not just the podcast. It's the big picture of what we're going for. So I don't know if I can express that to you in words, but I hope that you're feeling that in terms of just how much that means to us and what that represents and what we really are working on here for this is our alignment, right? That's why we show up, to do all this stuff. So thank you for allowing me to do that, and thank you for sharing. I really, really appreciate it. All right, so companion guide, zestyginger.com/flow. This is going to help concretize the days to kind of what are the actionable steps that you're going to take. And so for day 8, we are still in that massive action phase. And we are very close to talking about kind of what do to-do lists actually look like for Megan and I. So that is going to be a discussion for tomorrow. However, today, it probably seems like you're this is a lot of groundwork to do, because we're so conditioned to you figure out where you're going real quick, set the goals, and then the next day you're going to have a 10 thing to-do list, and then you power through it, and then you're productive, and you go to bed happy, and then you wake up and you do it all again. That is kind of the story that we're told, and that is the expectation that we all seem to have, except for the problem is we all keep feeling collectively like we're falling short, because we're well, some days I feel like doing that and some days I don't. Sometimes I have great follow through, sometimes I don't. There must be more to the picture than just wake up, hustle, get after it and feel good about yourself. Because if we could all do that, I'm pretty sure we'd all be doing it. Like, I would have loved to make that happen. I tried really, really hard for years to make that happen, right? And so it's a different way of thinking about it. Then that's not to say that throughout this thing you're not doing the things and living your life, but what happens in the beginning is that there's more of a disconnect, it feels like, to like, what does your daily life look like? And now all of a sudden you're having this new way of interacting with yourself and with your surroundings. And so the groundwork that we're laying, and no pun intended for today, the groundwork that we're laying is going to be the springboard for that massive action being really aligned and really honed into where you're going, so that the ultimate goal is to accomplish more while putting in less effort and hard work. I'm doing quotations there because we have it flipped to, you do the hard work and you make it happen, but most women that come to us are like, I'm doing everything right, and they're it's absolutely true. They're like doing all the things. They're showing up. They're making 3 meals a day from scratch, and it's all organic, and they're exercising, and they're eating 500 calories, and they're, like, there's a bunch of that we see. I mean, there's definitely times where that kind of gives way to like, I just give up. I'm going to do whatever I want, right? So then people come with that, but it's all one and the same. So there's going to be action. We take action, every day, but once you do this cycle thing once, where you kind of understand the flow, it really gets easier and easier to integrate. It's like, what is life asking me to do now, and what am I learning about myself that next time around I can set myself up for more success, since always more success begets more success begets more success, which is really the whole goal of this whole thing. So that is to say, we are absolutely going to talk about the massive outward action during this phase. But day 2 of it, so for day 8, for this now new focus, there's a little bit more groundwork that we have to talk about. All right. So this is the experience of having explosive energy and having that creativity really show up for us to propel us into the actions that we will take that support the actual creation of it in our physical world. It's one thing to feel good and feel aligned and meditate and do it, but really what we want is that we want the experience to be good, and we want to get what we want, right? Otherwise, what's the point? So as we take that explosive action, a lot of what happens is that we tend to get a little spun up in the air of everything that we have to do, or feel that we have to do. All of it's a choice. We feel like we have to do a bunch of stuff. We're making things happen. We're probably running around. We're in our heads thinking of things, right? We're writing like the website copy and putting together the kids' lunches and meal prep and whatever category that you are falling in. Like, you're actually doing the things. That is an absolutely like non-negotiable part of it. We want to make things happen in our physical life. We're going to have to do physical things. What can really help the experience of that and really allow it to work for us is having the explosive energy and taking that outward action in a way where we simultaneously also feel grounded. And so this is where, again, when you're not watching and being intentional about what's happening, you get all jazzed about doing all the things, slap a bunch of stuff on your plate, and then you're in it and you're being like, wow, I'm so overwhelmed. Why did I think that I could do all of this stuff all at once with all of these big grand plans when, I haven't like put in the legwork for setting that up. So then you get there and you feel all whatever, overwhelmed or frustrated or just out of control is a phrase that people seem to mirror back to us when this is happening. And that's where, yes, we're going to do all of that. And then how do we actually ground ourselves into our physical body so much that we can do those things from a connected to ourselves place, right? So we've been connecting to our intuition, we've been listening to the signals from our body, but even as we head towards doing the things, how do we feel into that even more? Because it's a the higher you stretch up, like the tree growing, right? Whatever part of the tree that you see above ground, there's the same amount of roots anchoring it to it. So even though it's underneath the surface, the amount of like tree stuff that you see is also happening under in the grounding portion of it. So it's the same kind of thing. The more that we reach up and we go towards the new expression of ourselves, the evolution of ourselves, the corresponding grounding then is extra helpful to make sure that we are really feeling like, yes, that the changes are happening and I feel supported and I feel safe doing these things. So if you ever feel like you're dropping the ball in a bunch of areas of your life, or if you feel like there's just way too much going on around you, this is a really important thing to consider anytime that that kind of stuff is happening, because more than likely you're feeling the flow, and that's awesome, that's cool, that's really what it's all about. And that creation energy is what will make the outward experience actually materialize. The grounding, though, is what makes getting there feel really, really safe, right? So this is where in the companion guide that you have, there's going to be activities to think through that more, and really gets at the heart of what's going on for you as you get that. However, in this, I just want to bring up the general kind of question for you. When it comes to the concept of safety and groundedness in your life, what are the things you already have present in your life that work for you to make that happen? Sometimes that can look like certain relationships that we have, things that we ask for. It's probably not fair when it comes to relationships to say like this person 100% of the time makes me feel grounded and safe, because that's kind of a lot to put on another person. However, there are components of people's energy and the way that we relate to them. A lot of times the people that feel really safe and grounded to me are the people who I can openly say, I am having this, and could you please support me with this, right? It's because the communication is there. And that is what it looks like for me. But thinking through that stuff, once we have a successful strategy, we can actually begin to expand it. So if there's a component of someone that feels safe because you're like, well, with this person, I can share exactly what's going on. And in sharing, then I ask for what I need, and then they give it to me. When we see that very clearly, and you're like, I know that that is a component that makes me feel safe and grounded, how can we get more of that in other aspects of our life, right? Then even in relationships, it's like, how in the relationships where I don't do that, why is that? And is there a way that I can approach that so that it's happening, right? And I apologize if you are hearing jets in the background as I record these. I am at Megan's house. They live in a jet flight path, and the jet sounds are just like a thing that Megan and I deal with when we're recording and making videos and things like this. And it's kind of turned into a joke because they always seem to come, no matter how we try to work around it. There always seems to be jets, and so we've turned that into the interpretation of the jet sounds are cheering us on. So if you're ever hearing jet sounds, they're cheering us on. You're on the right track. You're doing great. So as we record stuff and we get interrupted by that, we're kind of like, oh hey, look at how awesomely the universe is telling us that we're doing great. So here comes another one. I don't know if you can hear that, but that is the deal there. All right, so with the the application of that, you're essentially identifying where you experience that stuff, and how then in the identification of that, how can you get more and expand that feeling in other areas of your life. So if you have that with a relationship, the invitation can be, how do I interact and get more of that in my other relationships? Or you could completely switch to other categories of your life. So if, for example, feeling safe and grounded means that you go out in nature and every day you're getting out for a walk because you're like, my feet are on the ground, I'm physically, getting out in the groundedness of it, like the physicality of it. I'm moving my body so that I'm interacting with the very kind of physical foundation of me, getting into my body. That's super cool. Sometimes it's standing under the shower and just letting the water run over you and feeling the water go over your body, and like just appreciating the water being there. It can be laying in bed, like there's kind of the running joke, but I actually love this, is when you take a shower and you shave and then you get into clean bed sheets. It's like just the best, right? Well, I actually don't know if that's true for you, but I think it's awesome. So that kind of thing is like actually feeling that we're down here experiencing this whole thing, like grounding into the body into a way that feels really good. And then this can even go into the realm of, how do I interact with my own body in ways that feel good? So that can be grounding into the food, right? Consciously eating food, making a meal that like visually looks, or a snack visually looks good to you. Like, does this make me happy to look at? Do I really like how this tastes, or do I just continually force feed myself things I've been told are good for me? Right? Like, what out of the things that I believe are good for me, which ones do I really enjoy? Let me go experience that and just eat what I want to eat that makes me happy, and actually consciously have the awareness of like, I picked this because I wanted to enjoy it, and now I'm going to sit here and I'm actually going to enjoy it, and that's super cool. Right? So it can look like that, or it can even be physical touch, and that can be solo, that can be with another person that makes you feel grounded and safe, whatever that looks like for you. But that's where a lot of us we end up being ungrounded and disconnected, and we're living in that to-do list. And these things can be baby steps toward it, or sometimes it really is, we're drawn towards having the physical touch of someone else and whatever setup that you have currently, and then really just doing it in a way that feels enjoyable to you. Sometimes it's made a little bit easier when we do solo touch things, just because sometimes the people that we would explore that kind of stuff with also cause us to feel a certain way, because that's kind of the pattern that has been created. So if that's the case for you, it doesn't have to be with someone else. But if you have that kind of thing and it speaks to you, that's a really beautiful way of grounding into your body and receiving love, giving love, that kind of thing. It can really hone in to the feel goodness, and hopefully that does. Stretching, mobilizing the body in terms of just movement, that kind of thing, all of it counts. So let's take the limitations off in terms of grounding into our body is just whatever makes us feel like, when I do it, I am intentionally focusing on what my body is feeling like and doing, and garnering enjoyment from it, so that we are choosing to be in our body with whatever thing that we are doing. And then that the activity of doing it when you're consciously focusing on it is the practice for when we are spun up in our heads and we are taking action. Sometimes you're going to have to check in, because you could have a really aligned to-do list, which we're going to talk about tomorrow, how we actually come up with that. You could have a really great one, and you could do an activity on there that is absolutely the thing that's going to move the needle forward and get you on the path to getting what you want. And you could still do something and be like, whew, I need a little break. I need to like feel into my body. I need to kind of connect with myself again before I go on to the next thing. So even though today the focus is on this, to intentionally explore that, really the usefulness of it, I mean, that is always available and that's super fun. I like that kind of stuff and I do it. But really also then the in the moment application of the recognition, I need that kind of thing right now because I just, expended a bunch of energy, put myself potentially into some unknown, right? The things that move the needle forward in our to-do list, I'm kind of heading into tomorrow because as I wrap this up, the things that end up moving the needle forward are not the things that we're like, oh yeah, that's so comfortable for me. Like I've done that a whole bunch of times. I mean, if you have done it a whole bunch of times, there's either two scenarios. Either you do it because it works really well for you, right? But then it becomes routine, or we do it just because that's what we've known how to do. Megan and I had this a lot, and I'll just give an example so that it makes concrete sense. For example, we were like, we need to create, like posts and podcasts and blog posts and social media things, and every single day, all the time. And like, this is what needs to happen. And we didn't stop to think about the bigger picture, right? If you're always like, say something, do this, like it was something that we habitually did, that we were told that we needed to do because that's what led to business success. And so we were just doing it, but just screaming into the void of the internet, after a while we were like, okay, well, yes, I can take outward action, and it's outward action that I've been taking, but the needle isn't moving as fast, right? Like that wasn't the high yield thing. Now, was it super valuable? Yes, it always is, because this is why when people come and they're like, holy cow, you guys have like podcasts and like 300 blog posts and your Instagram is like pages and pages, like you just keep scrolling it. That stuff, yeah, I'm so glad we have it. That is cool. But at some point we had to really stop and say, the story that we're telling ourselves, like we do this and then that's gonna, if we just do it hard enough and long enough, that's gonna move the needle forward. We really actually had to challenge that and say, okay, actually, making connections with other people, right? Other people in this space. How do we build? That's like why we're friends with Jolene Brighton and Dr. Carrie Jones and all of these different peoples, because at some point we had to do things that were new. And the thing is, that felt more uncomfortable because I could sit in my living room, I could write a social media post I felt good about. That wasn't that much of a stretch anymore because I had done that already. But going to someone who I was like, oh, look, she has like more people and she's like, internet famous and all this stuff, to send an email that said like, hey, I'm putting myself out there, felt very, very different. And that's what I mean by, yes, of course, we have the things that we do and that work for us. That is not on the table, because if it's working for you, great. You're never going to question that kind of thing, right? Like, the things that I do for my health that work, that I just do every single day, I'm never sitting around thinking like, oh, is that work? I just know that works. The other, what I'm actually talking about then, is the things that we fill our time with that aren't actually getting us anywhere, right? Those feel bigger and newer because they usually are bigger and newer. We're going towards bigger and newer things. It requires action that mirrors it. Therefore, the grounding and the ability to feel into our body and get into that state becomes really, really important. And that's why I kept saying groundwork in the beginning, is because we really benefit from having that as an option to say, in between this stuff or as I'm doing it, how can I also bring in that component of safety and serenity and kind of, I'm here, I'm showing up for me, I know how to modulate these feelings so that when they come up, like, oh, that felt new, that felt scary, what are they going to respond with? Like, what if they're mad? You know, there's a bunch of different things. Like, they can look like setting a boundary, and then you're like, gosh, is that person going to like leave me in my life? Like, they're not going to like this, and whatever. There's a lot of things that can follow. Then the grounding really kicks in. That is when the application of it is. And when we have that groundedness, the explosive action that follows, then we can keep going with it instead of you do one thing and then you're like, I'm out for the count for a while. Like, that was a little too far for me. It brings it back to, okay, I'm safe. And then when we feel safe, those things that we do as exploration have a different flavor to them. They have different outcomes a lot of times, and we just generally weather the up-leveling process a lot easier, and it doesn't sweep us off our feet. All right, so groundedness, check that out. Let me know what you come up with. I love seeing everyone's ideas. It's so cool to follow up the creativity with the grounding, because I think that this could look a million different ways for a million different people, and on any given day you could have like 5 different options. So please, please, please tag us. Let me know what you're doing. Let me know what works for you. I'm always getting ideas from you guys, so thank you so much. Like, I know a lot of times when I listen to podcasts, I'm like, oh gosh, I'm getting ideas from this person, but when they actually say, like, I get even more from, like, I do this and then you all share with me and I get more, I really resonate with that a lot, because the amount of ideas that I then get back from you all, that it blows all my stuff out of the water, right? Because it's just so many people. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I really, really appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for being here. Thanks for learning this whole flowing with your cycle thing. It's amazing. So super proud of you. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for coming out to hang with us on the podcast. It is our goal to transform the way women are treated in healthcare. And we need your help. We need your help to get the word out. We have a lofty goal of 1 million downloads. And we know that as this podcast grows, we're going to be able to reach more women, get more amazing speakers for you, and bring the most cutting-edge information.
If you found these podcasts helpful, please take a moment to text 5 women you know the link to the series. We appreciate your help so much. Can't wait to see you next time.